and dramatic 911 calls from the car crash that triggered that massive gas explosion in Melvindale earlier this month.
Tonight, there are questions about how those emergency calls were handled. 7 Action News reporter Jennifer Ann Wilson's live in Melvindale with the story of the ringing phone.
Yeah, Stephen and Carolyn, before we get to that 911 call, I want to give you some perspective on the extent of this damage, starting with this burned out building extending all the way to the intersection of Allen and Greenfield, and then panning over, you can see this tower of ash that used to be an electricity pole crossing yet another street, a building which siding is now melted off. There's even a piece of what appears to be a melted car sitting here on the sidewalk. As you might imagine, a lot of 911 calls for this fire and then the explosion. I listened to several of them. The most chilling came from a man who was right here when that initial crash happened. He, in fact, is friends with the man driving this car. I want you to take a listen to this 911 call and hear what the police have to say about how they handled it.
Melvindale 911, what's your emergency?
Hi. I need, I don't know where I am. Someone just crashed their car. My friend just crashed his car. There's a fire.
Are you on Greenfield?
Yes.
Let me transfer you right to the fire department. Stay in line.
Please.
It's around 2:40 in the morning on July 2nd. A car had just struck a 500-pound gas main valve with an electrical power line nearby, sparking a fire.
Melvindale car, start heading, dude.
Andy, stop! Andy, stop! Oh my God, Andy, stop!
A second fire was then sparked at an adjacent training facility while the 911 caller continues to panic, and the call that was transferred just rings and rings for more than 60 seconds.
Andy, please. Andy, wait. Andy, he's so dead. Oh my God.
Sir, what is the problem?
I asked the Melvindale chief of police what the dispatch officer was doing while this caller continued to panic.
It makes it sound like he wasn't actually listening to that entire 60 seconds of this guy panicking that something could be happening with his friend.
No, you saw the line. He was also dispatching the officers and listening to the officers telling them what was happening because the caller wasn't saying a whole lot.
Andy, wait. Andy, he's so dead. Oh my God.
You know, it would have been better to have 20 dispatchers answering the phone. It would. They all would have been undated, and calls would have been spilling over to another 911 center anyways.
Now, I've listened to quite a few 911 calls in the course of my career and never heard one quite like this one. So I asked the chief of police, shouldn't the dispatcher be talking to this man, this caller, helping him, maybe coaching him through whatever was going on or trying to calm him down? And the chief of police said that his team did the best they could under the circumstances, that they were trying to get emergency crews to the scene at the same time, that they were on the phone to the callers, they were multitasking, trying to handle this massive event just the best that they possibly could. He also said listening to the call, it sounded like they were okay because this guy, Andy, was getting out of the car. But you see these melted pieces of the car here left on the sidewalk, and it definitely does leave you a little concerned. We do know that the man who was driving that car is still in the hospital at this time. He's scheduled to be in court at the end of the month. We're not quite sure if he'll be able to medically make it there just yet. I'm reporting live in Melvindale, Jennifer Ann Wilson, 7 Action News.
Yeah, that is frustrating, listening to the phone ring and a man screaming. You just hope they'd calm him down, at least, as you say.